Fernando Cheung, Vice Chairman of the Labour Party. And Fernando, thank you for joining us. You're now inside the Legislative Council building, but earlier it was on lockdown. A day after those violent clashes, there are dozens of people, over 70 people injured, 2 in serious condition. How dire is the situation in Hong Kong today?
It is in the brink of falling into a different status, if you will. We are afraid that we would become a mainland city. We would no longer have a rule of law, our own autonomy, and also liberty in Hong Kong that is protected by the basic law and the one country, two systems.
Carrie Lam, the chief executive of Hong Kong, she continues to defend the extradition bill despite widespread opposition to it. She is also condemning the protesters and their actions on Wednesday. How are you gauging the way Carrie Lam is managing this crisis?
Well, we had 1 million people strong came on to the street on Sunday. It was loud and clear. It was probably the biggest demonstration ever in Hong Kong. Now, wouldn't that show the administration that something is wrong with this bill, and that at least they should recognize that there are a lot of opposition, a lot of concerns about this bill? By pressing it on really does not do any good to Hong Kong. Now, despite all that, Carrie Lam insisted, budge nothing. And therefore, when the bill was supposed to be resumed reading in the Legislative Council here, people came out and people were frustrated. We saw most of these people being very young people, high school students, university students. They came out and they wanted to show to the administration that this is no way to simply press on such a controversial bill. Now, they continue to ignore them. So it has to escalate to an extent that people want to show their frustration.
And it certainly has
But
escalated.
it is definitely nothing like a riot.
And
yes, but it's not a riot.
It wasn't a riot. You're calling it a protest. Carrie Lam, the Hong Kong police, they called it a riot.
Yes.
Carrie Lam has defended the actions of the Hong Kong police force. Human rights groups all around the world have condemned their actions and their use of what they call excessive violence. Did you see firsthand examples of police brutality on Wednesday?
Yes, it was out of proportion. We saw police shooting rubber bullets and beanbag bullets towards the crowd without giving warnings. And that is totally unacceptable. We're talking about lethal weapons being used against unarmed citizens, and most of them are young children. I can't imagine an administration, a government, would use such armed, lethal weapons against its own citizens. Now, of course, there are pockets and times that certain violence have broken. But these violence, we're talking about people pushing barricades. And the types of tools they were using were like helmets or face masks or umbrellas. All these are devices to protect themselves rather than for attacking others. On the other side, we saw police having a lot of weapons, the pepper spray, the tear gas. They basically use tear gas at will, without limitation, and they even use the rubber bullets against them, and that is something totally unacceptable.
We have an ongoing standoff on the streets. There is impasse over this controversial piece of legislation. What can Hong Kong do to climb itself out of this situation? What's the solution here?
Well, I think we should come back to some senses. Now, everybody knows that this is such a controversial bill that should not just go on without any revisions. The government should suspend the bill for now come back to the negotiation table, have all parties and the public included do a thorough consultation of the bill. And then we will go back to this legislation process. Otherwise, we can only brace ourselves for even higher confrontation. And we don't want to see any more bloodshed in this confrontation.